How the frick do I do this again? I'm so bad at streaming. How do I do this? How's that? Does that come on the back? Desktop? Properties? What am I even using? I think I've got music going. Yeah, I think I've got this. I think, I'm trying my darndest here. I'm not a professional streamer by any means. Hi, Trevor. Did the book get an index? It did get an index, but not the one you wanted. So, unfortunately, the book did fortunately, the book did get an index for the monsters, so you can look through all the monsters, and there's an index for all of the cards, specifically the roleplay cards, which is really useful, but we did not get an index for magical items, which is not the best thing. I don't know why they did this. Nobody likes the index, basically, of magical items just spread out all over the place, but for some strange reason, they have magical items be when you come across it in the adventure, it's there. The music's distracting. Can I make it like as quiet as possible? Alrighty, let's see if that's good to go now. Hello from Colorado. So excited for this book. I am excited for this book too because I want people to enjoy in all of the awesome, amazing things that it is. And also, my thing isn't doing the comments. Can't even remember how to do that now. How do I do that? Did you YouTube chat? There's a URL for the chat. Aha. Looking good. Wow, darn. What is your favorite new faction in WoW Beyond the Witchlight? Alrighty, so there are many different factions throughout this book. We have the Harengon Gang. We've got the Soggy Court. We've got the Getaway Gang. We've got the League of Malevolence. We've got, I guess you could call them a faction, but they're basically a whole bunch of... why am I blanking on their name? Perytons. And then we also got a whole bunch of people that work at the playhouse itself. I'd probably say my favorite faction is the Soggy Court because of just the crazy nature of the fact that there are these frogs that are trying to be French aristocrats, but they're really bad at it, and they keep on killing their own kings. Like, that's just hysterical. And that is totally awesome. So how do I grab the pop out chat? Is that what I do? And then I grab this. And then do I... Boom? Hey, it worked. Huzzah. Look at that. I'm trying my darndest here. And also, I haven't gone around to spreading the word that I'm live streaming. I did do, of course, the thing, the whatchamacallit, the whatchamadoohickey. I did do the pre-thing there, but I need to spread it to all the word to the Discord that I am alive and amplified. I want everyone to know. Because I want everyone to ask me all the riveting questions you have about this fantastical book. What did you want to know? And how the frick do I... Why am I so bad at this? I don't know why the heck I can't stream. I used to be able to stream on Twitch, no problem, because I knew Twitch's interface, but I am brand spanking new to the YouTube streaming. Okay, nope. Live stream. Boom. Grab the link there. The wild beyond the whatchamacallit. The wild beyond the doohickey. The thingamajig. The dingle hopper or whatever it is. Everyone, I am alive and amplified. Come on down and ask those burning questions about the Witchlight. Man, you don't know how much power it is until you hit add everyone, and then you go to hit enter, and then it says, do you really want to message that many people? Heck yeah, I do. Heck yeah, I want to message that many people. And then the Witchlight. I'm a mod in the Witchlight thing, but I don't want to abuse my powers here, so I'm not going to. So I'm just gonna do a friendly reminder in the chat here. I am live and answering any questions about the book. And I gotta make sure I type in answering right here. Okay. So is the Archfey that we save really evil? Statement from a guy on your last video. So she is. Tasha is totally evil. But she's not like I'm going to, raise the world. I'm going to be totally malicious evil. No, she is the best kind of evil. She is the evil that she gets whatever she wants, and that's that end of story. So she is, of course, as we all know, once you finally dive through the pages, it is Tasha. And, Tasha is the individual that... she's done a lot of things. She regularly has a devil boyfriend. She does. Her mom's Baba Yaga. So evil runs through her veins. It's just the way it is. Yeah. So she is evil, but she's not like, oh hey, thanks for saving me. Now I'm gonna kill you, evil. No, she's the evil of like, oh hey, thanks for saving me. How about like you work for me now, kind of evil, which I like. What are your best monsters in the book, in your opinion? We get a lot of fun ones. The Jabberwocky, I think a lot of people are going to rip and put into a whole bunch of other adventures. Honestly, the best monsters in this book are the hags. Because the hags are not just rebranded green hags or night hags or any sort of hags. These hags have their own completely unique stat blocks. Each of these hags is completely independent of all the other hags we've seen, which makes them stand out on their own and totally awesome. You realize that live chat appears beside the YouTube video right now and later if you want. I know that now. I'm totally bad at this. Maybe one day I'll take a crash course in learning how to YouTube live stream. Are the 3 Fey location sandboxes? Yes, but. So basically we have Hither, Thither, and Yon. And through those locations, we have a whole bunch of unique, interesting points. And there's a whole bunch of unique, interesting random encounters. And most important of all, the most prominent aspect of these areas is the hag's location. So in Hither, we have Downfall. In Thither, we have... I'm totally blanking on the name, but it's basically a workshop. And then in Yon, we have this massive theater. So in those areas, yes, they are technically sandboxes, but there isn't a true, like, oh, hey, it's like a hex crawl area. It's more along the lines of, like, you sprinkle in the random encounters when you want to. So I am going to be doing some guides, and I'm going to be doing some suggestions on when you should pace out all of the random encounters and all the fun bits. Because it is a sandbox, but it's a sandbox theater of the mind, essentially. Wizards of the Coast gives DMs 2 possible adventure hooks, but it seems like you could use both of them, right? Make it so the PCs lost something in the Carnival as children, and then get hired by the Warlock. I am coming out with a video tomorrow on 5 ways you can introduce this adventure, and I do talk about that. There is a lot of really awesome ways to get your players hooked into this adventure, and I do think that those 2 adventure hooks are great, but the ones I'll be introducing in the video tomorrow are going to showcase off some fun ways you can do some fun tweaks on that, and so much more. So I've already recorded that one. I'm going to be recording a whole bunch of videos pretty soon here, but I just got done running a little Fae adventure for the Discord, and I'm doing this live stream now, and throughout the course of the week I'm going to be doing a bunch of recordings. It's going to be a ton of fun. How do you plan on implementing the rules of hospitality and ownership? Do you treat them as hard-coded rules in the Feywild or just cultural guidelines? So I do plan on using all of the rules of hospitality, ownership, and reciprocity. Those are hard-coded in. The real matter of the concern is what they actually mean. And what I mean by that is like the letter of the law. So with the rule of, hospitality, you don't beat someone up if they, kindly walk into your home. That's just a given. But what if someone, sneaks into your home, and you could think of that as having ill intent? Or the rule of ownership. You can't steal things, but maybe you can borrow things for a certain amount of time. Or if you have a certain claim to it or a certain stake, maybe you could claim that they don't truly own it and then you deserve to get it back. There's a lot of fun wordplay you can have with the 3 rules of hospitality, ownership, and reciprocity. And I do think that it's going to come down to, you're going to have some groups that are going to be maybe like rules lawyers and sticklers about it, and some groups are just going to accept that it's all Feywild shenanigans and you just learn to move on. Okay, what's your favorite expression of Fey weirdness that the players might encounter in this adventure? There is so much Fey weirdness going on in this adventure, so much, and that's what I love about this. My most favorite off the top of my head is okay, so here's one. So and maybe that's not my favorite. That's a tough one, honestly. There's a lot of good ones in here. One of my most favorites is your players basically walk across in thither, and they get all of these wanted posters. And these wanted posters say, hey, I want Will of the Woods. Bring him to me, and I'll give you something. And there's a lot of fun wordplay with that. One of the rewards is the hag says, I'll bury you up to your neck in silver. So if you take that as a general rule of thumb, it's like, oh, Billy, we're going to get a bunch of silver. But then you take it to her, and then all of a sudden you get buried to your neck in actual silver, and then you're stuck there. And then another one is like, oh, I'm going to make you impervious to weapons, and then she petrifies you. Like, that's honestly one of my most favorite ones there, because if you have greedy players, they can definitely get punished hard for that, and that's pretty hilarious. Only on Hither so far, but a lot of the locations feel very quick and simple. Like Slanty Tower and Telemy Hill have 1 NPC each. I feel like both are going to take an hour of gameplay max. Yes, so one thing I'm going to address about this adventure is this is a tremendously, and I do mean a tremendously shorter adventure than all the other 5e modules. And there's 3 reasons for that. 1, it's 1 through 8, levels 1 through 8. A lot of the other ones are levels 1 to 15 or 1 to 12, 1 to 11, 1 to 10, whatever. But this one's only levels 1 to 8. 2, and here's a big one, is the fact that if you get rid of combat from a game entirely, you are speeding up your game by 2 or 3 times the amount. Because combat in 5e takes anywhere between 30 minutes to 3 hours, right? So if you get rid of combat, game goes by shorter. So this adventure is incredibly shorter than everything else. And then third is the fact that there's a lot of encounters which are extremely short. Much like you mentioned, Telemy Hill, it's only going to take a few minutes. If they talk to Jingle Jangle and Jangle Jingle pretty quick, boom, just like that, they get done over it, easy peasy. But the thing to consider is there can be a lot of retreading of these random encounters. While yes, the random encounters are of, oh, Jingle Jangle's right here, your players get the key and then they move on. But maybe there's an incentive for your players to go back. Maybe there is a reason for your players to search through areas that they've already searched through. Maybe there's a lot of fun NPCs that the players interact with that they want to interact with again. So I do think that if the NPCs are compelling enough in these areas, then your players do have a reason to go back to them, and thus it'll pad out the time of the game a lot more. The Hag's design is stellar, visually and narratively. They're the real reason I really want to pick up this adventure. I'm sitting on a mountain of unused 5e adventure books. Might as well add another. If the mountain's already high, adding one more thing to it isn't going to change anything, right? So, absolutely, I agree. If you stand back far enough away, it's the same size, right? That's all I'm saying. Are the NPC details located in one place or scattered throughout the adventure book? Both. So you find out a lot of the information about the NPC individuals right there where they're relevant. But then we also have a lot of those NPC cards that detail out the named NPC in the back. And those ones are basically a few sentences or a paragraph of the NPC, as well as their ideal bond, flaw, and motivations, and characteristics. I always say motivations, I don't know why. And those are located in the back. So you can definitely have it where if you have like NPCs that you never use, you can just flip out the card real quick and boom, easy peasy. But the NPCs that you're going to be using a lot more, you definitely want to study them up a lot more, then you probably are going to have to look them up throughout the book. Do you believe the non-confrontational options are obvious enough to the players in most instances? So this comes down to the fact that you need to beat over your players' heads in that session 0 and pretty much every time throughout the entirety of the game that you can say, hey, you can do this without combat. You can do this without beating up on the enemy. You can do this without doing these various things. You need to tell your players this because if you were to grab the air quote average D&D player, they're going to approach a lot of situations with combat because the character sheet tells you to do combat, because the spells tell you to do combat, because XP tells you to do combat. A lot of these things tell you to do combat. So you do need to tell your players, hey, you can talk your way out of situations. Instead of beating up on the enemies, you can do fun, creative things like use faction play to get other creatures to attack one another. You need to tell your players this. And once they do, I will say it's not exactly the most, transparent on how to get through some of the confrontations. But if you tell your players, like, hey, don't do combat right away, then they'll certainly open up their minds to various ways. And they may not come up with how the book describes how they should get through an encounter, but they're going to get creative. They're going to come up with some fun ways on how to handle certain situations, whether that be trying to get, enemies to fight each other or run around or run away or do something creative, right? The Feywild is the opposite of the Shadowfell. How does this game fare as an opposite to Curse of Strahd? What I'll say to that is, do I see this as an opposite to Curse of Strahd? Your YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Experience buffer. Maybe I need to cut off some other things on the side here. Cut off all my Wi-Fi and whatever else. Here we go. No more music. Music's eating into the thing. Is there anything else I can kill that's eating up my interwebs? I don't know. Honestly, I have no clue. I really wish I knew how to increase the quality of what I was doing here. Alrighty, I think this is as solid as I can get. I guess. Okay. I mean, I'll answer this, and I really hope it's still going through. Is there any... So, the opposite of Curse of Strahd. So, in regards of this being the opposite of Curse of Strahd, what I'll say to that is... Curse of Strahd is a sandbox that is a lot more codified. This is a loose sandbox that is less codified. So in that regard, I would say they're definitely more opposite. Curse of Strahd leans in on the theme of darkness and despair. This adventure leans more on whimsicalness and weird sensations. So it's opposite in that regard too. So I would say that there is a sense of oppositeness here. Man, I really wish I could improve I really wish I could do something to improve. Is there any way I can control delete? Is there anything I can kill? Oh, you know your computer's in trouble when control delete's laggy too. Oh no. So control. I mean, my task manager is only saying only 33% of my CPU is being taken, only 60% of my memory is being taken. So like, I don't know why there's an issue there. Maybe I'll kill Discord. I don't need Discord right now. Screw you, Discord. Maybe killing Discord will do a trick. Is there any sort of legal system or list of rules and punishment for violators? Not natively, no. So what is basically listed in the adventure is ditch the pop-out chat and rely on YouTube for live chat. This will save internet string. Ditch the pop-out chat and rely on YouTube for live chat. Okay. I have killed my live chat. Video's fine again. Okay, good. So no, there is natively no laws or rules that basically say if you break the rule of reciprocity, hospitality, or oh my god, why am I blanking on it? Reciprocity, hospitality, and why am I blanking on it? Why am I? You all know what it is though. There is nothing against. There's no mechanical impulse. There's no like someone comes to beat you up or anything like that. There is none of that. So what I would say is threaten your player characters with that. Say, hey, like everyone has to abide by these rules or else. And hopefully that'll be enough. Hopefully that will be enough to put them in line. But if you do have players that just immediately go, if you have players that just immediately go against the grain, then I would say, yeah, probably try and put in some sort of mechanical implementation. Maybe they have like effectively like a Bane cast against them, or maybe they have maybe like they have disadvantage on like some next ability check or whatever. Like putting something fun in there would definitely go a long way to making the 3 rules that much more impactful into the world. What elements of this adventure do you see yourself modifying or homebrewing? How easy is the adventure to run straight out of the book? So first things first, I'll answer the easy adventure. This book is extremely easy to run out of the book. In fact, realistically, you can run this thing like page by page. To really fill in the time, you can just throw in one of those random encounters, and those random encounters are a really good way to eat up some time and have a fun time with it. So I would say extremely easy to run out at the book. But in regards of what I'm going to modify or homebrew, I'm going to modify and homebrew how the adventure starts off, basically the hook to go into Prismeer. I'm going to modify basically the relationships everyone has in the world with each other and with the hags. And I'm going to modify specifically the Palace of Heart's Desires, because when it comes to a large dungeon crawl, you have to be very careful, especially in 5e, because what I see a lot of times in 5e is people delve into this mega dungeon, and then they delve in, they maybe get into a few fights, and then immediately run away because they want to take a long rest. So, in order for my players to explore around this large castle, but do it in a respectable time, I need to shorten it down just a little bit. And whether that be I cut off some of the combat encounters, or if it's a no combat run, then I think it's going to be perfectly fine as is. I'm running COS now, and then this. Should be quite the contrast. Looking forward to it. Yes. So one thing I mentioned in my video today was the fact that this book stands out completely on its own from all the other adventures for a good reason. With all the other adventures, let's take, for example, my most favorite, Tomb of Annihilation. In TOA, the world's ending. You know, it's a huge cataclysmic deal. And then we got Descend to Avernus. You're literally going to hell. We got Rime of the Frost Maiden. Everything's cold and everything's miserable. We've got all these grandiose, large-scale things of just crazy, sad, epic, weird nonsense. But this adventure is quaint. It's cute. It's small. Its scope and scale is allows people to finally, not have to worry about all that burden on your shoulders of trying to save the world. This adventure it's such a great feels good slice of life campaign that none of the other campaigns are doing, which I really like. Is there enough background information on the Feywild? Not that much. No. What I would say is there is a lot of cool info on Prismeer in particular, and that can set you up for making your own little domains of delight. But there is a DM's Guild supplement coming out that has all of that. That has all the details you would want about making your own Feywild area. Okay. Is there ditch the pop-up video is fine now. It's the internet connection. What information would you give to your players during session 0 for this adventure? What info would you withhold? Alrighty, so I'm going to be coming out with a video tomorrow, and that video is about how to start off this adventure. I would just be straight up with my players and say, hey, this is an adventure where you don't have to kill everything on sight. This is not an adventure where you have to be murder hobos. This is not an adventure where you have to, be super duper min-maxed with all of your PC stats and classes and spells and whatever else. No. I would tell my players, hey, you can do whatever and it's going to work. So long as you are creative enough and you are willing to accept various things, then boom, you can run this adventure. So that's number one, is what I'd say. I wouldn't go into, the actual, anything in regards to Prismeer. But what I would say is what I would go into is saying, hey, this campaign starts off with a carnival, but then it eventually leads into the Feywild, and that's where all the fun shenanigans go down. Alrighty. Are there ways for players to lose their PCs other than through death? Can the Feywild take them away? It would make sense given the non-violent possibilities elsewhere. There is not a single instance in the entire adventure that says, oh, if they fail this check, then take away their character sheet. It's not that specific line is actually in a lot of the 5e modules. Not a lot of them, I'd say, but it's in a number of them. But that line is not in there. There is nothing that says like, oh, you just take away their character sheet, they're gone, they're forever. There's some things without combat, I'd say, that you could definitely say that they lose their character. Specifically, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but that line does not exist. But there definitely could be scenarios where you say, hey, like, your character is like too. One thing is you could give in, like your players could like surrender to the hags, and then you could say that their character is gone. That could certainly happen. Is it worth purchasing the module for the Carnival alone? I've heard nothing but great things. The Carnival is great. There is a bunch of fun mini games, and there is a bunch of fun little encounters, and there is tons and tons and tons of named NPCs. So the Carnival alone is great. But something to note is the Carnival is not an adventure. The Carnival has several side quests in it. The Carnival has a fun little scenario in it. I mean, theoretically, you could rework the air quo like reward, which is going to Prismeer. You could rework that into being something else, like some big old prize, and then you could say that the Carnival is an adventure. But I'm here to tell you that I would not spend $50 on just the Carnival alone. If you wanted just the Carnival, then maybe look at some other supplements, and maybe something else, because the Carnival is a great aspect of this adventure, but the Carnival is only not even a fifth of the adventure. It's one chapter, yes, of the book, but it doesn't even take up 28% of the adventure. So that's something to keep in mind there. Goodness gracious. Okay. Yeah, so y'all got any questions, feel free to ask. I am happy to answer them. I'll go ahead and talk for a bit here. The thing about this adventure is, unfortunately, I have a habit of liking things that not everybody likes. And I like this adventure, which makes me worried about this adventure, because I think that there's going to be some people that don't like this adventure. I think that there's going to be a lot of people that don't like the fact that not all of the random encounters are spelled out when you should place them in the adventure. I think that there's going to be a lot of people that are worried about, oh, I've got a group that only likes combat, should I not run this adventure? And then you're going to have people that say, oh, I don't like all these, I've already gotten all these comments, of course. There's going to be people that don't like the fact that there is callbacks to, like, the old stuff of the League of Malevolence and all that fun stuff. So there's a lot of people that are going to see a lot of glaring issues with this adventure. And quite frankly, this adventure just isn't for them. I think what people need to come down to consideration is Wizards of the Coast is going to be pumping out a lot of adventures. They're going to be pumping out a lot of books. They are now in full production, and they're going to be pumping out at least 4 books a year. Maybe more. Maybe 5 or 6. Not every book is going to be for everybody, and that's okay. I know Fizzbands isn't going to be for everybody. I know Strixhaven's definitely not going to be for everybody, because I saw a lot of hate for that one. And unfortunately, I know that this adventure, even though I love it to pieces, it's a cute, fun, whimsical romp, I know that not everybody's down for that. Mr. Witch and Mr. Light used to be part of Ravenloft Carnival, and Isolde used to master the Witchlight. What do you think of running a high-level Ravenloft Carnival adventure after the Wild Beyond the Witchlight? Heckna. So, Heckna. So it's funny you mentioned Heckna. I backed Heckna, so I've been keeping up to date with all that. There was something interesting to note about all companies in the same realm. When it comes to companies, they all drink the same Kool-Aid. All companies are always in on the thing, the flavor, the whatever. A perfect example of that being many years ago, Tomb of Annihilation came out for 5th edition. During that same 6-month period around there, there was a whole bunch of other jungle-themed adventures from other companies. And then a few years later, there was Wizards of the Coast. They did Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and then within a 6-month period before and after Wizards of the Coast, or before Waterdeep Dragon Heist, there was a whole bunch of city-based adventures, and etc., etc. There's a trend in the industry, and for some strange reason, the trend for the past year has been carnivals. There was a carnival-themed adventure for Pathfinder. There was a carnival-themed little adventure for Heckna here, and so on and so on. What I'll say for that is Heckna. I don't know if Heckna will be the go-to, because you have to scale up Heckna, and Heckna kind of is definitely leans toward the lower end. So you'd have to do a lot of that yourself. But that being said, a Ravenloft campaign that you build up yourself could be totally awesome, because then you could totally have that fun, thing of, oh, the levels 1 through 8 were, Sunshine and Rainbows, Fun Time, and Prismeer, and then levels 9 through, whatever you want to end at, maybe 15 or 16. That's dark and despair and, Ravenlofty. You could definitely do that for sure. Is there any new interesting terrain for the PCs to interact with? Terrain. In regards of no. No, there's no like the yeah, there's no like, oh, you've never been to like this sort of area before. I will say, Yawn in particular does have a unique terrain feature in that it's a lot of like rising mountains and stuff, and there's like mines. So maybe that can be classified as interesting terrain. But in regards of like terrain they can interact with, I think just the mine. I think that's pretty much it. The Displacer Beast Kitten is adorable, but is it the most adorable thing in the adventure? I'd say it's definitely one of the most adorable things in the adventure. There's a lot of adorable things in this adventure. There's a lot of cute goblins, and there's a lot of cute, the bullywugs. A lot of people are going to think that the bullywugs are cute. Is it the most adorable thing in the adventure? It might be, honestly. It honestly might be, because yeah, it probably takes the cake. Because it's a cute little Displacer Beast. It's like a cat, but with tentacles. I mean, come on. That's awesome. Which NPCs are you most excited to portray for your players? So definitely the three hags. And the reason why I'm most excited for them is because in most games, you see a monster, you kill a monster. But hags have that special relationship with parties, usually, in that you can run hags in a non-competitive way. I run hags in practically every single one of my adventures just natively. And the thing about the hags in this adventure is the hags have a reason why they're not going to immediately attack the party. Because they want to use the party. They want the party to do their dirty work. And so having that interconnection between all of the hags either hating each other and knowing each other's secrets, and then having the players thrown into the mix of that is just so fascinating. It's so unique. And it's really fun to see how the players react to that, how they decide which one they want to bounce around with. So definitely the three hags for sure. And then also, funnily enough, is in regards to NPCs that I'm most excited to portray for my players, is the three guides. Because something really cool about this adventure, which I'll be going into during my videos on this series, is this adventure does harken back to old school play of D&D, in that you actually get a bunch of followers. You get a bunch. Ugh, there's like something stuck in my mouth there. So if you run every single random encounter and your players are willing to like have everyone hop on board, your players can get a massive posse of like followers and essentially retainers, which is really cool. And so you get all the three guides that take you to each location, but then there's also other ones. One of my most favorites is the goblin that got ran over by the Jabberwocky. That's just a really fun thing to have, a goblin that acts as a torchbearer kind of thing. Like, that's really cool. I really love that. Are there enough low-level magic items that will not wreck a game? Absolutely. There are enough low-level magic items. There's a bunch of fun, unique little ones that you get, specifically in the Carnival itself, in the Witchlight Carnival. You get a whole bunch of fun little things that get like one-time uses and stuff like that, and that's really cool. I really like when games offer use like single use or multi-use items, because that just makes it that much more awesome when you pull off the one thing and it does it well. I know that a lot of people tend to give out items that work forever and all the time, and then unfortunately the DM is stuck with those players having those items forever and all the time. So it's good giving out items that only work one time and then they're spent. And then there's also just a whole bunch of fun little items in the beginning that are perfectly fine. Like, one of the early items that your players can get is a Stone of Good Luck. But it isn't a Stone of Good Luck. It is a banner that is featuring... Oh, man, who is it? It might be Zybelna's banner. And that operates as a Stone of Good Luck. So that's really cool. Does the module feature any interesting puzzles, or is it mostly social dynamics and exploration? Yes, there is puzzles. It's puzzle light is what I'll say. Very puzzle light, because at the end of the day, I think Wizards knows that people suck at puzzles. I think Wizards knows that both DMs have a hard time describing puzzles and players have a hard time interacting with puzzles. And, that might very well be the case. I don't know, but there is some puzzles, specifically the Palace of Hearts and Desires. But one could argue that social dynamics are a puzzle. One could argue that, I guess. Did you back the 5e Oz campaign on Kickstarter? Speaking of industry trends, no, sadly, I didn't get around to that one. I remember seeing that one, like literally, like I saw it, like it was like an advertisement, and then I click on it, and then it said, "Oh, the Kickstarter ended," like a day ago, and I'm like, "Oh man, whatever." So sadly, didn't hop on that one. So so something I want to talk about, in straying away from Witchlight for a second, is Kickstarter has been killing it for the tabletop role-playing game community. Absolutely destroying it. The major Kickstarter events, the major ones, and I'm talking about the people that have famous people attached to them, at the bare minimum, they are earning $250,000. The bare minimum. When I talk about famous people, I'm talking about like the people who have 100K subs or more, that are like, or like if they're from YouTube, or if they are like actual writers, or if they are actors or whatever. These people are making these Kickstarters that are destroying it. And mind you, that's just the high end. On the lower end of things, even on the lower end of things, by people that aren't famous, like people my size and people even smaller than me, they are still doing good too. Like, I regularly see Kickstarters for fun, like, one-page dungeons, and their asking price is only, like, $2,000, and then they earn $10,000. And then I see another one that's like, oh, hey, these are, like, fun character options, and we're only asking for $4,000, and then they earn, like, $20,000. Kickstarter has been a blessing for the tabletop role-playing game community. And that just means that, like, more people are going to be able to spread the word of their works and ensure that it gets paid, because that it is an unfortunate thing of, I feel like beforehand people were so reliant on the DMs Guild, and the DMs Guild is unfortunately very, very competitive, and not everyone can break through with it. But I feel like with Kickstarter now, people can really, really push themselves to put out amazing things. And I will be joining their ranks at some point. I'm doing a bunch of writing right now. I'm trying to write on average like 2,000 words a day, because I'm working on a ton of things. But I want to join that, the echelon of writers. I'm not going to be like the Dungeon Dudes, unfortunately. I'm not going to put out the $1 million product, but I do want to put out a product that's worthwhile. Is there a recommended number of players? Can a DM easily run this for, say, 2 or 3 player characters? Absolutely. In fact, I think this game works better with 2 to 3 players, because that means you can really, really rely on those social aspects. And you can also rely on the fact that you're getting all those retainers. So, a perfect example being, if you have a group of 2 players and you're running through this adventure, then you basically have these 2 players, and then they're like, oh man, we're lost and all alone in Prismere. But then eventually they start building up their posse of friends. They get Clapperclaw, and then they can get Morgort, and then they can get, so already right there in Hither, right there in the beginning, they can build up their group to be double their size. And then they can slowly build up more and more momentum. And then by the end of it, they'll look around and see all these fun friends that they made along the way, and that's totally cool. Hi, how's it going, everyone? How's it going, Robin? How is it going? I'm fan-frickin-tastic. How about yourself? Cloak, hi. Hi, Cloak. There's so much fantastic 5e content on Kickstarter. It's overwhelming, to be honest. I run 2 games a week and could barely ever scratch the surface of all this content. Here's what I'll say. It is a good problem to have when there is too much good content. I would much rather be in the boat of, oh no, I can't hold all this good content, versus the boat of, man, I've got all the time in the world and there's nothing to run because it's all garbage. So I'm glad that we live in the world where we, yes, have all the good content. And too much good content. Yeah, and, this adventure, I really do hope that it buries, it cements its place in everyone's hearts and minds, because, like I mentioned in my video today, I'm sure not everyone watched it, but I talked about how this book breaks the mold. When you look at all the other adventures, we see that there is this formula of, you go to this one place and you definitely do this one thing. You definitely get into this one fight. You definitely get this MacGuffin. You definitely do these things. And all of the 5e modules up until this point have been trying to do something different. But the thing is, they're still on the same track. They're basically being malleable with their style of railroaded gameplay. They're moving a little bit to the left, they move a little bit to the right, but at the end of the day, they're always going along the same path. This adventure is definitely air quo railroaded in a sense, but it is so vastly different from all the other directions, all the other all the other modules have gone, that it truly stands out. And I really hope that they start taking all these in different directions. Like with Strixhaven. With Strixhaven, they've said that the adventure is going to be all about being in a school, which is entirely unique, right? Like I want to see more variety in the uniqueness of adventures, and I really hope that this book absolutely kills it, so that Wizard of the Coast hops on to adding that variety. Coming from I read that as Thirth Age. I don't know why. Thirth Age. Coming from 13th Age, a desert of content. I agree. Exactly right. Exactly. What is your opinion on the new races offered in the book? Alrighty, so Harengon and Fairy. So I personally don't care at all about the fairies, because whenever I envision the adventuring party, whenever I have this vision in my mind of the cool adventuring party, I typically think of 3 humans plus maybe 1 not human. I don't know why that is. I just always have in my mind that humanocentric design and idea. And then for me, basically, I'm thinking of these 3 humans, and then all of a sudden there's a little fairy floating around. And for me, that just doesn't look cool. But I know a lot of people are gonna dig the fairy. I know the fairy is gonna be a really fun one because of fairies are unique. I know a lot of people in 3rd edition played, I believe there was a pixie race, and that was a really popular build. So the pixie, I don't really care that much about, but that's not up for me to decide a lot of time. Personally, I don't care what you play a lot in my games. I just care that you actually care about the game more than you care about a specific build. In regards to the Harengon's interesting in that they have that jump ability. And something people need to know is that jump ability doesn't add to your movement. It's part of your movement, much like regular jumping. So jumping is really finicky and wonky in D&D, in that you can't jump beyond your movement rate. And it's really weird when it comes to if you have the jump spell cast on you, because with the jump spell, you theoretically could jump a very far distance, but you're not allowed to jump beyond your actual movement. So it's I could jump 30 feet, but I run 15 feet up, and then I can only jump another 15 feet kind of thing. Really weird. So in regards to the races, I'm perfectly fine with them. They're not breaking the meta. I don't care about the meta being broken. I really don't care. I just care that, people get some interesting options, and if they want to use them, that's fine. I'm doing well. How do I get well from there? How is that possible? I'm doing great. Just got the Witchlight book, and my family just finished the Icewind Dale story, and excited to go into the Carnival after that. See, that's a really fun tonality change. You go from Icewind Dale, which is cold and dark and despairing, and then you get sunshine and rainbows in the game. That's a really fun way to shake off the ice. Oh, Womp womp. I watched your video today. Thank you, Mr. How to D&D. Thank you so much. Do you think Wizards of the Coast is relying on the guild community to come up with the other domains of delight? I checked out their 4 charity domains of delight guild release, but it's just a how-to for making them. So Wizards of the Coast is very interesting in that they come up with the main book. They come up with the highlight adventure, whichever book it is, whichever module it is, whatever. And then specifically with the adventure modules, we get the supplementary Adventures League, which, mind you, for those of you that have never taken a look at Adventures League content, there is a lot of gold in there. Adventures League content is, for the most part, totally awesome. And a lot of the times, you can actually take the Adventures League content and add it to the adventure module itself. I've done this for Curse of Strahd. I've done this for Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I've done this for TOA. Grabbing the adventure or the Adventures League stuff is fantastic. So you have the Adventures League content that's coming out for this one, which is, they've already come up with like several like little random adventures. But then they've also got this one thing that they come out with that's talking about how to make your own domains of delight. And basically it's much like the Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft in, here's how you make the thing. Do I think Wizards of the Coast is relying on the guild to make domains of delight? No. I just don't think that they care about other domains of delight, is what I think. Because much like, yeah, I mean, they made all those domains of dread for Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, but I don't think that they're gonna bother doing that with domains of delight. I don't see them doing that. So yeah. So I don't think that they're going to rely on the community. That being said, though, the community, I promise you, is already working hard on it. I've made my own, by the way, I should totally have this as like some type of advertisement here. I've made my own domain of dreadful delight, which is called Confectionia, which is all about a Candyland domain of dread. So if you're looking for a sweet adventure, with little hooks and a little place to adventure in, then check out Confectionia, Domain of Dreadful Delights. That's my pitch. Alrighty. How do you, and I like the quotations of you, take the maps in the book and increase the size to tabletop size? Old school style. So if I were running in person, I would probably go down the route of, trying to photocopy it onto something bigger. Or I would just go down the route of just having the big old, whole bunch of paper and put either the plexiglass on top or that screen protector on top, and then just drawing up the maps myself. Because I'm here to tell you, if I were to run in person, I'm not currently running in person right now, but if I were to run in person, I am not spending money on Dwarven Forge, sadly. I'm too poor for that. You're going to get little, like hand-drawn maps that are totally crappy, and you're going to like it. Because ain't nobody got time to make all these crazy, fantastical 3D maps. No, I'm just going to draw on a little thing, or maybe I'll just do Theater of the Mind. Do you expect a Van Richten style guide will appear for the Feywild in the near future? That would be awesome, because quite frankly, I know a lot of people in the community would want a Fey actual thing. I know that like the Fey is one of the most least touched upon aspects of D&D. Like, we've gotten adventures that take us to hell. And mind you, I'm not just talking about 5th edition. I'm talking about all editions of D&D. We have adventures that take us to the hells. We have adventures that take us to all the different planes. We have adventures that take us back in time. We've got adventures that take place on different worlds and stuff. We've got all of these things. And the Fae has... I'm willing to bet... Honestly, I'm willing to bet that the Feywild has the least amount of support of all of the different aspects of the world, because there's even a bunch of Shadowfell content. Like, we've got a bunch of Shadowfell content, but we don't have a bunch of, Fae content. Come on, bring us some Fae. That being said, though, when would the release of this Fae-style Van Richten's Guide come? I'm willing to bet that wouldn't be for a while. Because, quite frankly, take a look at how long it took for us to get Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. We got Curse of Strahd years ago. Years and years and years ago. And then only just recently we got Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. So if we were to get this, let's say, working title, who's a fun character, Mordenkainen, maybe it would be like Tasha's Guide to the Fae, or maybe it'd be Volo's Guide to the Fae, or whatever. I'm willing to bet that if we got that, that wouldn't be for several years to come, sadly. What is Adventurers League? So Adventurers League is, the concept of Adventurers League is that you can show up to your local gaming store, and there should be some sort of organizers that are running these games for you, for everybody. And what's cool about Adventurers League is you create a character, and then you go to the store and you play as per the rules, completely strictly by the rules, and you're playing with a whole bunch of people that are playing through the same adventures as you. So this is a drop-in, drop-out style game where you show up with all these random people, play these games. Hopefully, eventually, they're no longer random people. And you play these games. And the cool thing is that your character's track record is kept. Like, there's a huge database of all the adventures that you've gone on and a whole bunch of cool other things. And what the Adventurers League content itself is that they are all reflections of adventure modules. So they go by season. So I'll take a look right here about all these seasons so far, because I've got a whole bunch of them. 5e, Adventurers League. Alrighty, so season 1 was Tyranny of Dragons. So basically it took you on basically a sort of motif spin of Tyranny of Dragons. And then the second one was Elemental Evil, so it took you on sort of a twist on Prince of the Apocalypse. Rage of Demons, season 3, that is Out of the Abyss. One of my most favorites, Curse of Strahd. So the Curse of Strahd season basically takes you to Barovia, or not even Barovia, it takes you to I guess, the area near Barovia, and et cetera, et cetera. So these adventures are completely unique to Adventurers League, and you're playing through them. That being said, though, you can get them from the DM's Guild, and I promise you can add these to your adventures, and they're going to be phenomenal. There's a whole bunch of great content to be mined through there. One of my most favorite being Waterdeep Dragon Heist. The Waterdeep Dragon Heist Adventures League stuff is fan-freaking-tastic, and quite frankly, in my opinion, a lot of it's better than the stuff that was actually in Waterdeep Dragon Heist. So that is that. Is Confectionate on the Guild? I'd like to grab it. You might have seen my own Ravenloft module, Phantasms of Shriraji. You are the author of that? That is totally awesome. So Shriraji is one of my most favorite locations in second edition Ravenloft. We had a web of, oh my god, why am I blanking on the name of that adventure? Web of Spiders? Web of Lies? It's Web of something. You know what I'm talking about though. But that's totally awesome that you're the author of that. I'll go ahead and link it. I'll totally shill myself out here. DM's Guild. How do I find my own thing? Confectionia. Yes. I found it. And now to plug myself. Boom. Self-plugged. Web of Illusion. That's what it was. Ah. Yeah, is there anything else I can try and kill? Because my internet connection's fan-freaking-tastic. I just don't know why my stream is just not that great. I don't know. Can you strip the adventure book like a chop shop and use sections as one-shots? Yes, you can. I would argue that so every single one of the Hags locations are great little one-shots you can have, because you can have like some fun like role play with all of the interactions therein, and then you can end the one-shot by having the boss fight with the hag. So that's totally a great way you can do that. Yeah, I would definitely say that you can easily chop up this adventure into many, many little adventures, whether that be one-shots or mini multi-shots. You can definitely do that. Except maybe the positive outer planes. I don't think Wizards of the Coast has said anything in the Beastlands or Mount Celestia or anything. Yeah, but I don't know. I wouldn't think of like Mount Celestia as being like a place for like a whole bunch of adventures. I'd see like Mount Celestia as being a place for exactly like one like cool adventure. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that's why. Although there are some allusions to Modrons and other modules, so we may get a Mechanist campaign. We might. There's been some allusions to Modrons, and everybody loves the March of the Modrons. Like that's a classic right there. Dungeoneers Pack, how's it going, Dungeoneers Pack? How are you doing on this fine day of the release of the Wild Beyond said Witchlight? I'm doing fan freaking tastic. I picked up Rime of the Frost Maiden for my first ever campaign to run, still ongoing. Would you say that Witchlight is going to be a bit simpler and more straightforward to run? Absolutely yes. So, when I did my guide review series on Rime of the Frost Maiden, I did not sugarcoat the book in regards of how things didn't line up well and how the adventure wasn't exactly tailored properly. With this one, as I hope you'll be following me through my guide series on Wild Beyond the Witchlight, there's definitely some things that aren't the most straightforward, but I'm here to tell you that this adventure is far, far simpler and far more straightforward to run than Rime of the Frost Maiden. That being said, that's not that hard. I mean, that's not saying much because Rime of the Frost Maiden was chopped up in such a weird way, but I will say it is still easily in the higher echelons of easier campaigns to run. So there is that. So definitely, I would say that this adventure is going to be great for DMs that don't want to do as much prep and more so just want to have some fun role-playing as weird, wacky creatures and monsters and see what your players get up to and the weird social interactions your players get and do and see, I guess. Yes, Web of Illusion. Yeah, Web of Illusion. Because I went on a hard deep dive of going through a lot of the second edition Ravenloft content, because there is, for those of you that haven't actually looked at like older editions of D&D, you do not need to be afraid of looking at older editions of D&D, because while yes, the vernacular has changed and the numbers have changed, the adventures themselves are still intact, right? I could pick up any first edition, second edition, third edition, fourth edition adventure, and I should be able to run it in any other edition because I can just take out the numbers and bits and then just plug in the fun stuff. And I'm here to tell you that AD&D, second edition, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, had the most content come out for it because TSR was pumping out adventures like every other day. So there's a lot of amazing content to sift through there, and it's well worth exploring. Especially if you're into Ravenloft content, then whoo-wee! My goodness, there was so much Ravenloft content with second edition that you should absolutely do yourself a favor of and looking through. When the PCs reach downfall, is there a path set ahead of them, or can they go all over the place, visiting Yon followed by Thither? Or, question. So basically how it works is, when your players get to downfall, that is when they meet up with a good old-fashioned Clapperclaw. And Clapperclaw can show them the way to Thither. And then once they make their way to Thither, that's when they can interact with Squirt. And Squirt can show them the way from Thither to... Goodness. Squirt can show them the way from Thither to Yon. And then from Yon, I'm totally blanking on the third guy's name. God, oh my God, is it Dandelion? Is Dandelion the name? Let me see if I can find this out really quickly. But Dandelion then can then show them the way back. So there is a air quote set path ahead of them, but something you've got to remember is when the players have dealings with the hag, they may very well come to the consensus that, okay, we're not going to fight the hag, we're going to work with the hag. And then the hag is going to, and then Bavlorna Blightstraw in Downfall there is going to say, hey, I want you to go over to Thither and I want you to mess up her painting. And then they go over to there, and then maybe they take up a quest to mess with the other hag. And then maybe they take up a quest to deal with the other hag, right? So there is a lot of potential for players to keep on going back and forth between Hither, Thither, and Yon. There doesn't need to be just, oh, we go to one place one time, that's it, end of story. There should be, and can be, absolutely a lot of backtracking and going back to all these fun places. Oh my God, where is his freaking name? Is it Dandelion? I'm gosh darn it. Where's his name? Where is it? I'm like sifting through all this right now. there's so many words. Why am I blanking on the third guide's name? Guideon. Dandelion. Yeah, it is Dandelion. I was right. I knew it. I knew it. Hey, what's good, all? How's it going, Anthony? How's it going? How's it going, Dennis? Little dab there. When's the last time? The last time I saw a dab was that one doctor that's like, Ligma balls, like, that's the last time I saw anybody do a dab. I'm excited that the maps are in color. For that reason, I picked it up on Roll20. Curse of Strahd was very good in Roll22 on account of the full color maps. So, Mike Schley puts out phenomenal, beautiful, grade A content. Everything Mike Schley puts out is gold. And for a while there, for a hot streak of the 5e module lineup, we were given Dyson logos. Now, Dyson logos goes for the simple and easy to read. Dyson logo maps are barren and blank, but you know the confines of the room, and that's all you need to know. Especially if you are running in person, and as mentioned before, a lot of people are just either going to copy that out and save themselves a ton of ink, or they're just going to draw it out themselves. And for that reason alone, Dyson Logos is awesome. But we do live in a world where a ton of people play online. And even now, people that play in person are privileged of having those like TV monitor things that they play on top of. So color maps are absolutely phenomenal, right? Like when I play Tomb of Annihilation and Curse of Strahd and I pull out those full-on color maps, oh, so good, right? Absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. But, I know they're not for everybody. For some people, like, those color maps they have too much going on for them and they're not needed. And, they may be even hard to copy for people, right? So I get why that they bounce between Mike Schley and Dyson Logos. But I just want them to, like, maybe either buckle down and just get, like, both of the artists to do maps. Or maybe they, adventure. Absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. Because there's just, like I said before, it's a unique thing. It's unlike anything. If you've only ever ran the 5e lineup of adventures for your players, they've never encountered anything like this before. If you have only delved into the normal things of D&D and you haven't dived into the Fae at all, once again, this is a completely unique experience. And that's what we love to see, unique experiences. Every time I play in a campaign, I want to play something new. Nothing irks me more than playing in a campaign and going up against the same monsters and going into exact, replicas of rooms and, going into the same motifs of things. This adventure is unlike anything else from any of the 5e lineups. And quite frankly, I'm pretty sure from all D&D lineups. So yeah, I am insanely hyped for this as well, because this provides a truly unique experience. I received my copy in the mail today. The art is amazeballs. Heck yeah, it is. The art. Oh, the art's so good. The art tells a tale. So, it's an unfortunate thing in this world where we judge books by their covers. We should not judge books by their covers. We should take everything by the content of their character, not by how they look. But unfortunately, we don't live in this world, right? We live in this world where we judge everything by its cover, and we judge everything based on how pretty it looks. That being said, when it comes to this adventure, my God, does it look so good. Those maps and those arts tell a tale. That art basically shows off the feelings of the world. Because I think it's very important when you're conveying a Fey world to the players, whether that be in the Witchlight Carnival or in Prismere itself, the world needs to feel vibrant. And when it doesn't feel vibrant, it needs to feel that certain strange kind of way. That is how you convey the strange sensation of the worlds around the players and characters, right? Is the fact that things are turned up to 11 in regards of what they look like, what they sound like, what they smell like, what they taste like. All these things should be just cranked up just a little bit more. Just a little bit more obscure, a little bit more strange. And that art really helps sell that. Gonna be running physical terrain for this. Cool. Power to you. Power to you that you'll be running physical terrain for this, because me personally, I am too poor to be doing all that stuff, and I'm quite frankly, I'd rather just sit down and be like, all right, here you go. Just throw things down, boom, easy peasy. What's the leveling path of the PC's level 1 until the carnival ends? Then level up twice in each of the subsequent domains, followed by the final level up in the palace. Yes. So how the leveling up works is you're level 1 in the carnival. When you first step into Prismere, as soon as you step into Hither, essentially, you become level 2. And then once you have your first meeting with the hag, then you become level 3. Then once you arrive to Thither, you hit level 4. Once you interact with that hag, you reach level 5. Once you go to Yorn, you're level 6. And then you interact with that, and then you finally get done with that, you're level 7. And then you hit level 8 right there at the grand finale. So pretty standard stuff. And like I mentioned before, this is going to be a shorter campaign. And leveling up will seem a little bit more breakneck than most campaigns, I will say. Because, as mentioned before, you're going to run through this campaign a lot quicker if you have less combat. If you have less combat, you're going to get through this campaign. I'm willing to bet that if you run this thing purely as written, not adding anything new, and getting into no combat at all whatsoever, you're going to finish this campaign in like 20 sessions. Methinks. I drink quite a lot of water. If y'all couldn't catch on. If y'all didn't know. I like that they gave some new races for PCs. That was a good move. So, it was a very interesting move, right? So, whenever I think of D&D books, I always separated them between the Everybody book and the DM book. And here's the thing. When it comes to the Everybody books, which include the Everybody books are Xanathar's Guide, Tasha's Guide, Player's Handbook, all these books, the Everybody books, everybody buys them. But guess what? When you have the DM only books, which is the adventure books, the DMG, the monster manuals and whatnot. Guess who buys them? Only the dungeon master. If you are running in the traditional group of you have 6 players at the table and only one of them is the DM forever and all time, then you're only ever selling one of these products to basically 6 people. So I think that from here on out, I think we're going to see a lot of merging between the Everybody book and the DM book. I do think it was awesome that they provided these backgrounds and these player character options and whatnot. But at the same time, that makes me think, are they going to be doing that for all adventures here on out? Are adventures going to have an air quote shoehorned in? Basically like, oh, hey, we need to get some player characters. We need to get some players buying this stuff. I think that may very well happen. Who knows? Guilty. I knew I wanted it at first sight. Yep. Exactly right. Like you look at that art and you're like, I want it. Give me that. If you were to rank this book in your module prep needed video, what tier would you put it in? It would be much higher up in regards of barely needed any prep at all. So the funny thing is this is not an adventure where your players need to get this one MacGuffin and then get this one crazy item and then do this fetch quest here and then have all these weird things. Realistically, if you want to run it a certain kind of way and more along the lines of as written, your players just basically go from point A to point C to point D to point, etc. And then they finish the campaign. Because if your players basically... one track of where I'm going to see a lot of people run the adventure, and once again, I'm going to be covering all these in future videos, is they go to the first place, they beat up the hag, but the hag runs away. And then they go to the second place, and then they beat up on the hags, but then the 2 hags run away. And then they go to the third place, they beat up on all 3 of the hags, and then boom, they run away. And then you have the Palace of Heart's Desires, and then boom, there's just one last epic conclusion fight, where your players go up against the League of Malevolence, the Jabberwocky, and the Coven, and then boom, they free Zybilna. Awesome, days saved. There is not that much foresight, there's not that much forward thinking that you need if you're going to be running it that way. But if you're running it where they constantly go back and forth between all of the hags, and they try and play them against one another, then for sure, you are going to have to take a lot more notes, you're going to have to think a lot more about that. It really just comes down to... how you believe that your players actually want to approach this adventure. At Nick True. What did Nick say? I'll like that you new race. Okay. Jamie. Hello, Jamie. Jamie is the mime. So we've got, and Jamie, thankfully you don't have to ask about how the map works. You already got that one out of the way. Matt, so we got another reference to the Ebon Star and Witchlight, I think. So weird. Wonder if it's more hint of a future adventure module that's goddish. Check out the Astronomer's Throne in Yawn. Ooh, maybe we'll dive into some god stuff. Maybe we'll dive into... Wouldn't it be badass if Wizards of the Coast was like, hey, we're putting out all these like low-level adventures, levels 1 through 5, 1 through 8, 1 through 12, whatever. We're going to make a campaign that's just straight up level 16 through 20. Go! Wouldn't that be awesome? I think it would be. What did you think of the new backgrounds? So the new backgrounds are perfect for this adventure. Completely worthless in every other adventure. So, once again, I'm going to be doing a video releasing tomorrow on the 5 best ways to start this adventure. Those backgrounds are fantastic ways to start this adventure. But, funnily enough, the backgrounds basically say like, oh yeah, basically they help you out. But they barely help you out during this adventure at all. Basically, the Witchlight hand one in particular is like, oh yeah, you get some bonuses while you're at the Witchlight Carnival. But you're only in the Witchlight Carnival for like, for like maybe a session or two. So, but it's very cool thematic wise. And I think, and most important of all is what I'm going to say to everybody is create your groups as a group. Don't have people showing up to the table with like, oh, I've got this random 5-page backstory and da-da-da, this and that. Oh, and I've got this, random character from this far off realm and da-da-da. Make the make the PCs together. And most important of all, tie them together, whether they be like friends as kids or, they all work at the Witchlight Carnival or whatever. Have them all work together to make your PCs. And I promise you're going to get a lot more coherent and a lot more fun campaign. Not only have most Wizards of the Coast campaigns been dark and dreary, but they have been so long. So it's refreshing to know that I'm not investing a whole calendar year. So, I've talked about this a lot, but we have steered from, taking all the way back, all the way to original D&D. We had adventure modules that were 20 to 40 pages. And with those 20 to 40 pages, you could actually get a respectable amount of sessions out of them, honestly. Like, here's looking at you, good old-fashioned Isle of Dread. Here's looking at you, Keep on the Borderlands. Those things were relatively small in size, but my goodness, could they provide quite a lot of content. Not years of content, but they could provide a decent amount of content. But over the course of time, something happened. We wanted more, and more, and more, and more. And now we're at the point where Wizards of the Coast is now putting out these adventure modules that take groups years to complete. And me personally, I'm not a fan of that. Me personally, when I sit down to be in a campaign, I want that campaign to be anywhere between 25 to 50 sessions. Usually on the shorter end. I want shorter sessions. And I'm not shorter sessions. I want shorter campaigns. But for some reason, we have this industry trend. I think the industry trend comes down to the fact that maybe people like, all these, maybe people like the fact that we have all these superhero movies that are huge chronological movies that, span years long. Maybe it's because people like Critical Role, and Critical Role is literally hundreds of sessions long. Maybe that's the reason why we have turned to doing these years-long campaigns. But me personally, I want it short. I want it short, sweet, to the point. This adventure delivers that. This adventure is not going to be a years-long campaign unless you really stretch it out, unless you add a ton of content in there. As written, this adventure is not years-long content, and that's exactly what I like. Hey there, Fred. Good old How to D&D Fred there. Dungeoneers Pack. Favorite thing from the book? Favorite thing from the book would be... custard damage? No. No, not custard damage. Honestly, my most favorite thing from the book is giving a believable reason why bad guys in a setting would not want to kill the party. That's it, right? Because I find that with a lot of these adventures, it is straight up, the bad guys would want to kill the party. And so then you have to play this weird game of holding back. You've got to play this game of, okay, like the bad guy can't send all their forces because they would obviously just wipe the party all the time. So how do we do it? How do we run a game where we give the players a fair challenge, but have villains that want to kill the party? Well, that's always something you got to struggle with, right? This adventure provides a perfect excuse and reason why your players are going up against all these factions and all these hags, and why they don't want to outright kill the party. Because they want an item, or they want a memory, or they want to use the party against another faction. That right there is one of my most favorite parts about it. And it does a very good job in that. Hi, Dennis Bryant. The Far Realm is the only dangerous place where we don't have a full Wizards of the Coast campaign. I guess Prince of the Apocalypse is not set in the Elemental Planes, but close enough. Far Realms campaign. Far Realms. Would they touch Far Realms? Is the question. So, we know for a fact that Wizards of the Coast is doing now a set rotation of adventure modules, the catch-all like player and DM supplements, and campaign settings. Do I believe that they would do a Far Realms location? Um. Honestly, I think they probably are going to hold off on that. You know what? I think we're going to see a Planescape and a Spelljammer campaign settings before we see a Far Realms one, is what I'll say. Does the book have a recommended party count? So D&D is natively, not D&D, 5e in particular is natively centered around 4 players. 4 player characters. But the thing to consider is that if you are running a game where it's going to be all about the role play and there is no combat at all, then player count doesn't matter. But I will say, if you are going to have less or more and combat is absolutely on the table, you are going to have to adjust accordingly, because the fun nature of maybe it's not a fun nature, but an interesting thing is 6-player characters are twice as strong as 4-player characters. The math seems weird on that, right? But it's the truth. The more player characters you have, the exponentially stronger that group gets. And then it's also vice versa. When you have less group, when you have 3 PCs versus 4 PCs, that's almost half strength. Like, I want to say it's like 3/4 of that strength. I'm saying that weird, but basically the less player characters you have, the infinitely weaker that they get. So you do have to adjust accordingly if combat's on the table, for sure. But once again, I will be doing all the guide series on it, and I'll be putting out my recommendations on all the on all the encounters. Hi Josh, hi Fred. A lot of highs. Hey bud, I just wanted to say your Chris Rod content has been and I'm technically not done with it either, because I will be going back to it at some point for future series ideas that I have that involve all of the campaigns. So yeah, technically it's still not over, but my god, did I pour a lot of time into Curse of Strahd. A lot of time. There's a lot. That book is huge. So yeah, thank you for appreciating all my hard work. Just joined and have no clue what this book is. Brief summary, maybe. Brief summary. Your players go to the Witchlight Carnival, have a fun time, and then find themselves in the land of Prismeer, a fey domain, which was once ruled by the benevolent Zybilna. But Zybilna has been usurped by a coven of hags. Your players now find themselves in this fey domain, which is separated into 3 separate places, each owned by their own separate hag. And through the trials and tribulations, your players will combat these hags, whether that be in brutal combat or through diplomacy. And with that, your players travel around this place, eventually making their way to the Palace of Heart's Desires, where they can try and free Zybilna from her terrible fate. And that's the campaign. Trevor has a summary in an edited video on the adventure. Yes, I do. Nice. I prefer short adventures that can be linked like Lego bricks. Absolutely. Absolutely. So here's the thing. When it comes to like 1-page adventures that can be linked like Lego bricks, you run into this fun thing where you have to have a lot of them in order to build on a campaign, right? Like, you have these, like, short adventures, whether they be one-shots or multi-shots. But to craft a full-on campaign, you have to have a lot of them. And the more you have of them, that means the more you have to sift through stuff. So, like, for example being, like, if I want to run a campaign of Curse of Strahd, I just pick up Curse of Strahd. And I know that just through reading it, like, this is going to be the adventure. But when I went to craft my own adventure, like with this example of these 1-page, Lego bricks, then you get in the scenario of you have to read a lot of synopsises to figure out which one you want to actually tailor it. Which isn't that hard. In the end, it's not nearly as much time as like reading just one of the like adventure modules. But there's basically a lot of like forward buy-in to like, okay, I've got to like look at these like 20 different like level 2 adventures. Okay, now my player's level 3, now I gotta look at these like 40 level 3 adventures and figure out which one I want, right? So definitely you could run into a problem of having like trying to do that. But I definitely don't see Wizards of the Coast doing that anytime soon. But that would be fun to do for us as a community to make these Lego bricks, make these one-page adventures. That'd be a ton of fun. Learning Zybilna's true name. So yes, there is the fun thing of the fact that Zybilna is not some random, whatever. Zybilna is Tasha. The Tasha. Of the Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Of the Tasha's Cauldron. Of the Tasha's everything. So the fun thing is in this adventure, your players get right from the get-go in the Witchlight Carnival, they see Tasha. And it may, but the thing is that this Tasha is a Tasha's Hideous Laughter machine, much like a one of those machines that the Zardoz machines of like, some genie that's like doing fortune telling or whatever. It's like that, but it basically makes you laugh. So your players right from the get-go, they see Tasha in the adventure. But it's just a dumb little machine. So more often than not, most people are just gonna see that as a boom, just a fun little thing. But lo and behold, later down the line, they figure out, oh, it's actually connected. It's actually Tasha. That's funny. What is your opinion of the maps? They're fantastic. Oh my goodness, they're so good. They're so good. So the maps, Mike Schley, as always, just absolutely kills it. Mike Schley just always knocks it out of the park with these beautiful maps. The maps do what they need to do. The maps provide these areas that our players are rife with, exploring around, and it does exactly what it needs to do. I mentioned this before, but I know that there's a lot of community like backlash between Mike Schley and going between Dice and Logos. I like both of them perfectly fine. I know some people prefer one. I know some people prefer the other. Like I said before, I wish there was basically just like two extremes of super hyper detailed maps with color, and then just the boring like, hey, here's the outline of the room kind of thing. I think that they should try and do that, but I know that they're not going to, because that takes up space and money. So Astronomer's Throne is on the Ebb and Star from Ride the Frostbane. Make me think that they're hinting at something Spelljammer or similar. Spelljammer is awesome, right? Spelljammer is, for those of you that don't know, Spelljammer is basically, Spelljammer is a spaceship, but it's not a sci-fi spaceship like we think of like Star Wars and stuff. They are literal like galleons that have rockets strapped to them, and then but they travel through space. So Spelljammer is just a fun, unique, old school setting where you go from planet to planet and do like space station stuff and get into a whole bunch of fun, cool things. And I certainly hope that Spelljammer rears its hide here. It shows off in 5th edition, because honestly, Spelljammer is, I think, like perfect for 5th edition, because it's all about high octane, crazy, wacky stuff. Lean into it. I mentioned this in my video as well today, but 5e tells a certain style of gameplay. 5e is all about high octane, action awesome adventure. And unfortunately, some of the adventures don't lean into the mechanics of 5e. A perfect example of mine is, unfortunately, one of my most favorite modules, Tomb of Annihilation. Tomb of Annihilation is awesome as an adventure, but sadly, it goes against 5e's philosophy of adventure in that there's the hex crawl. And natively, hex crawls and 5e just don't mix. And there's a lot of examples throughout all of the modules about contradictory gameplay and mechanics, with each other. But thankfully, with Wild Beyond the Witchlight, I'm here to tell you that, they lean into what makes 5e awesome, and it works out perfectly well. And I really hope that Spelljammer makes a triumphant return to the light. My players are NPC adopters. They're going to collect scores in this adventure, aren't they? There may be fistfights over the Displacer Cub. So, yes. Something to note is that Displacer Cub is not some, it's not a beast. It technically... No, it's actually not technically a beast. It's a monstrosity. But the Displacer Beast is sentient. So, something to consider is, one, you should never, have ownership of something that's sentient. But that being said, yes, if you have NPC adopters, then by the end of the adventure, your group is going to be I think there's maybe 12 or 13 NPCs that you get to adopt over the course of the adventure. I'd have to double and triple check there. But there is a lot of NPCs your players can pick up along the way. A lot. So have fun with that. Fun thing. Fun thing about Witchlight is the Carnival. Right from the get-go, right in this adventure, boom. They get a whole bunch of fun mini games, and they get a whole bunch of NPCs to interact with. And what's also really cool is this book, much like a lot of the 5th edition adventures, sort of leans into the idea that your group is more on the good side because you're presumably doing things for people. What's really cool about this adventure, specifically the Witchlight Carnival, is right from the get-go, it leans into the idea of, is your group more good aligned or more nefarious aligned? Because your group can, in fact, do good deeds and then win the Witchlight Monarch and then be totally crowned and, have some fun times there. Or they can lean in toward the naughty side and just cause havoc and mischief, and then that's when they are forced to be met by Mr. Witch and Mr. Light. So, I like that right from the get-go, they basically set the precedent of what kind of adventure group are they. She also has Tasha's Hideous Laughter as a cantrip, which is OP, isn't it? Isn't that ridiculously OP? She could look at people and just be snapping her fingers, looking around, and be like, you. That's awesome. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is an insanely good spell. Wizards of the Coast does have a few compilations of shorter adventures. Tales from the Iron Portal, Rime of the Frost Maiden, and Dungeon Mad Mage, which is definitely a compilation and not a full campaign. Ghost of Saltmarsh is also an anthology. Yeah, so the thing to consider with specifically Tales from the Iron Portal and Ghost of Saltmarsh, those are just straight up rips from older editions of D&D. Most notably, there's a lot from original D&D. There's some from 3rd edition. There's some from 4th edition. And in fact, there's actually one from D&D Next, which is basically what they were transitioning between 4th and 5th edition. So those are pretty simple, right? But the thing to consider with those are bigger adventures. Pretty much all of those aren't one-shots. In fact, I don't think a single one of those is a one-shot. A lot of those are mini, little, mini shots. In fact, actually, maybe Ghost of Saltmarsh has, maybe one-shot. But the majority of those are multi-session affairs. And then we have Dungeon the Mad Mage, which is basically just, separated, a whole bunch of different crazy nonsense. Rime of the Frost Maiden, which it definitely is just a whole bunch of different things slapped together, and it's kind of a hodgepodge mess. But, it still wobbles together somewhat. What I want to see is, I want to see them spread their wings a bit, because they just tried out Candle Key Mysteries, where they did 17 fun little adventures that are all typically one shots, and those were written by a whole bunch of different authors, and for the most part, I think it's more well received. I don't think it's the most well received though. So because of that, I genuinely don't know what their plans are for the future in regards of smaller activities, because I feel like with the adventure, specifically Ghost of Saltmarsh and Tales from the Iron Portal, I feel like they were dipping their toes. They're seeing, if people like the return of the classics, and then they do Candle Key Mysteries to be like, oh hey, let's just have a whole bunch of little fun one shots. But maybe because it wasn't the most well received, maybe it's not going to get as much love. Who knows? I honestly don't know. I'm so dumb. I just realized the Carnival map is a figure 8. Haha. Yes, sirree. So yeah, so the number 3 crops up quite a lot. You know, the number 3 because the rule of 3. There's a lot of 3s in here. There's 8s, you know, the figure 8s and stuff. Yeah, definitely comes up quite a lot. Definitely motifs that your players could potentially pick up on, but if you don't say it out loud, maybe they don't. I have to. Yeah, so keep those questions coming, and I got to check on something for a brief moment, but I'll be back in a brief moment. Alrighty. I might give them inspiration if they notice 3s and 8s. You know, that's honestly a cool way to go about it, honestly. That's honestly not a terrible way to go about it. Okay, so what else about the adventure? So something interesting about this adventure, and what do you think of the adventure tracking sheets in the back of the book? So yes, that adventure tracking sheet is totally awesome, right? So it does multiple things that is totally great, right? So first off, right there in the beginning of this adventure, we get this thing of your players do X, so that means because they did X, they are better at Y. That is something that should be in like literally every adventure ever, right? Because if your players get singing lessons, then when it comes time to sing, guess what? They should be better at it. If your players have already done some, goblin wrestling, then guess what? When it comes to wrestling later on in the adventure, they should be better at it because they've done it before. These things just make sense and it's totally awesome. So having that tracker there is totally great. And then you can also put down, what was stolen, and then it keeps track of, which hag is which, and where's the unicorn horn, because the unicorn horn placement is very important to this adventure. Unless your players are evil and they just kill the the unicorn, the living unicorn anyway. So having that tracking sheet there is totally great. That tracking, having something similar to that is honestly should be a must in a lot of adventures in regards of how the adventure is shaping up. So, all right. So what I was talking about before was an interesting thing about this adventure is whenever we think of a lot of adventures, your players are decked out or food whenever they want. But if your players show up to the land of Prismere and they don't have good berry and they don't have crave food and water, then there is this really, really macabre thing of your players are going to have to do something for food, right? Your players are going to have to actually forage. And there is actually a whole thing on tracking and finding food, which is very important. And I think that's a really fun like thing about how like you could almost overlook it. But there is a sense of a hardcore aspect of this adventure in that your players could starve out. Very, very totally, you can totally hand wave it, no problem. You can definitely be like, oh yeah, like the bullywugs give you food, the Harengon give you food, the getaway gang give you food. Like you can definitely just hand wave those things away. But if you don't, then you could potentially have some hardcore elements to this not so hardcore campaign. What is the worst thing about this book? Ooh, what is the worst thing about this book? Definitely one of the worst things is the lack of magical item index in the back, because having magical items placed in like specific places is just so bad. Like if you want to reference it, like you've got to like just like scour through all these pages for no reason. It's stupid. I don't understand why they did that. But in regards of like the actual adventure itself, one of the worst things about it is trying to think, what is the worst aspect of the adventure? Is Steely Sam, a buddy of mine, he harked on this earlier, both on Twitter and in the Discord. He didn't like that there was kids that are being used as labor. He didn't like the fact that basically there's these rules of hospitality and reciprocity and all that. And yet somehow the hags are able to basically chain up the kids and work in a factory. And I can understand why he doesn't like it, because he said it was bad writing. I personally wouldn't call it bad writing. I would personally lean in toward the idea of the hags perversing the rules, of the hags basically twisting the rules of reciprocity, hospitality, and why am I blanking on politeness? That's where I lean in. But I can definitely see how if you have people that are letter of the law people, they could definitely look at like some of the aspects here and be like, no, I don't like that. Yeah. So that's definitely one of the, maybe not the worst thing, but it's definitely one of the things that could irk a lot of people. One interesting thing about the adventure, if a PC accepts the stone ring reward, they're instant killed, no save, no real way to save you until the end of the adventure. Pretty much. Pretty much. Since there are many NPCs and relatively few grid maps, it seems like much of the adventure will be theater of the mind. Yeah, so the thing that you gotta consider is if they actually did put out a map for every single one of the encounters, there theoretically would be a lot. There is a lot of potential combat encounters in this adventure. But, of course, it doesn't need to come down to that. It can just be theater of the mind. But, hey, guess what? Thankfully, because you are part of our community, whether that be my Discord, or the Wild Beyond the Witchlight Discord, or the Witchlight Reddit, or I'm sure there might be a Facebook group too. I promise you, people are going to make maps for every single one of those encounters. Every single one. And you can get those easy peasy. So, thankfully, whatever hole Wizard of the Coast leaves, we, the community, are going to fill in the gaps. Foraging for food in the Feywild is dangerous. Think of that scene in Wizard of Oz where the trees attack Dorothy and Co. for picking the apple. Exactly. Exactly, right? You're trying to forage for a mushroom and then the mushroom bites your hand. Like, that should totally be expected, right? Some people don't like the hook to get them to Prismeer. It's too weak. Yes. So I'm coming out with a video tomorrow on the 5 best ways to get your players into the Lands of Prismeer. So right now the current 2 are you lost an item as a kid and some old person tells you to go. There is a lot of there's unique spins on how you can do that, which I'll be covering tomorrow. But there's definitely some strong hooks to get your players into Prismeer. I can absolutely promise you that. Stay tuned for that video coming out tomorrow. 8 a.m. PST. I've never run a module before. Is this easy to run as a first-time DM? Yes. Yes, it is. But what I will say is, while the encounters are easy to run as is, and the role play just always comes down to, you know, how crazy your players are. If you've got tame players, perfectly fine. But if you have chaotic, crazy players that just make it their life's goal to ruin everything, then one, you need to have a sit down and talk with them because they're terrible players. But two, they will inevitably ruin things. The real thing to consider is, I think the biggest mode of concern could potentially be the fact that there's a lot of random encounters spread all throughout all of the locations, hither, thither, and yon. But it doesn't tell you how often they should be. It doesn't exactly say, hey, you should definitely like run it this many times and all that fun stuff. So you should, once again, I'll be going over this in all my module guide series like I've done for all of the 5e adventures I've covered. But there's definitely should be an absolutely way to pace out the adventure. And I do think that this is going to be one of the easier adventures to run in the 5e lineup. Literally just picked up the last limited edition book at my local game store during this stream. Heck yeah! Flex on them. Limited edition book. Heck yeah. So are you talking about specifically the alternate cover, or is there some sort of limited edition like it comes with something extra? Because that is something I'm curious about. My local game store has not come out with the physical books yet. I will unfortunately be bookless for the next several days, which is a real shame because if y'all couldn't tell, for all my videos, I like to theme it with the book behind me. So if I'm just talking about general DM stuff, I like to have the DM's book there. But if I'm talking about a specific adventure module, I like to have the book there too. So unfortunately, the first several videos will not have the Witchlight book, but the book is going to come. I personally appreciate grid maps, even for places that people are just going to stand around in, especially when playing online. It just gives players something to look at, like minis on a table. Yep, like I said before, I absolutely promise you there is going to be maps for every single place. So, like, right there in Thither, so you should think about, like, the next session. You should not think about, like 20 sessions from now or whatever. So in Thither, some of the combat maps I know people are going to have is... There is a combat encounter with the Herringon gang, specifically Agdon Longscarf, and how it's described is there's a whole bunch of planks in like a swampy lake. So there is no map for that, but that one I know for a fact a lot of people are gonna definitely be like, oh yeah, let's definitely make that one, and then there's another potential combat encounter with where's the other potential combat encounter in Thither there? There's there's like some methods, right? There's some methods, and so like, you know, just random fight with methods, boom. You know, I promise you people are going to be making maps. If you actually check the Reddit, I posted up some maps already. Not of any particular place, but just of general locations. So definitely take a look out for those. Index. Nice, J Silver. Nice in regards to the book. I'm working on a witch board, Miro board, again for the like I did for Rhyme. Heck yeah! But it's not as complex, so don't need as much. Yeah. Your work on the Rime of the Frostmaiden stuff was absolutely fantastic, and I know that there was dozens, potentially even hundreds of people that really appreciated that Miro board that you did there, so I am very appreciative of you for putting out that awesome thing. So thank you for that. It's not gonna be as complex, thankfully. So you're not gonna have to be sweating bullets here. Just the alternate cover, okay. Yeah. Unfortunately for me, because I am, I'm poor. I do have to sit down, and I can't have a full collection of both the regular and the alternate covers. I do have to sit down and decide. And unfortunately, I'm not OCD. I'm not OCD at all, but I just want a collection that is similar-ish. So I definitely have to stray away from, unfortunately, not getting the alternate covers. I'm going to just get the traditional cover. Would you recommend Van Rechten's Guide to or Witchlight if you had to choose one? Here's what well, it depends. Do you want an adventure, or do you want an adventure generator? Van Rechten's Guide is an adventure generator. It does come with like a small little adventure, but it's like literally just like a 2-shot or 3-shot. But Witchlight is a full-on adventure and a nice little setting. Van Rechten's Guide to Ravenloft shows you how to run in all of these various different domains of dread. It tells you how to make your own domain of dread, and tells you how to run horror, which is a video that I have coming up sometime in the future. Is horror in D&D typically don't mix. Horror is different for everybody. Some people think that, spiders are horror. And then some people think that, Chainsaw Massacre is like not even horror at all, right? Horror is all sorts of different things. D&D typically doesn't lean in toward a horror style gameplay because your character typically isn't that scared. Your character is usually a badass, awesome superhero, and thus you don't have to worry about horror. But it requires a lot of player buy-in. You have to grab your players and be like, do you like it, yes or no? I've ran horror 5e, but more importantly, I've ran horror other tabletop role-playing games. And I'm here to tell you, other tabletop role-playing games are typically better at horror if they specifically are for it. 2 that come to mind that I've ran and love are Mothership, which is a sci-fi based horror action game, and Call of Cthulhu, which is mostly a detective work with Eldritch kind of thrown in the mix there. Very little action. You do not want to get into any combat in Call of Cthulhu. So if you are looking for adventure setting and how to make your own adventure settings and all that fun stuff, Van Rechten's Guide to Ravenloft for sure. But if you want an adventure that's lighthearted, down to earth, I would say Witchlight. Would it work for Warlock players with Zybilna as a patron? Yes! Yes, it would. Absolutely. And that is a strong hook for showing up to Prismere. And that's actually, spoiler alert, that's part of my video tomorrow on 5 best ways to start off Rime of the Frostmaiden. 5 ways to start off Wild Beyond the Witchlight is having Zybilna as some sort of patron. Maddie Hart. Richard. They actually encourage you to do that. Yes. Smash that like button. I agree. Smash it. Destroy it. Perfect. Favorite game at the Witchlight Carnival? What is my favorite game at the Witchlight Carnival? Let me double and triple check here. Because specifically, because there's both games and attractions at the Witchlight Carnival. So there's a whole bunch of variety there. My favorite game. Let me take a look at the games again, just so I can absolutely make sure. We have Ring Toss, Dragon. I would say, I mean, the snail racing is dope. I think the snail racing is probably dope. And the goblin wrestling. Here's why I like the goblin wrestling. Because one, you could do the goblin wrestling when you're a kid. So if your hook is you show up to the Witchlight Carnival when you're a kid, you could do the goblin wrestling, and then it's fair fight because you're like a 12-year-old kid versus a goblin. And then you show up 8 years later, and then you're an adult now, and then you go up against 2 goblins, and I think it's that's kind of cute that it's like, oh, all these years later you come back and you do it again. I think it's pretty fun. I've a player using a custom unicorn race might fiddle about with the story, so her horn is stolen. Ooh, scary stuff. Yeah, the horn. So the horn is a very unique MacGuffin in this campaign, because I find that with a lot of campaigns, there's only one MacGuffin. There's only one, and there's only one way you can get it, and there's only one thing you can do, and that's the end of story. This provides a unique MacGuffin. You have a unicorn horn, and you need that unicorn horn. But one of them is lost, and one of them is currently attached to a unicorn. If you have an evil aligned group, then either one, your party is going to try and kill the unicorn, or two, they're going to let Warduke kill the unicorn and then steal it from Warduke. Or if you have a not evil aligned group, they got to find that unicorn horn. You know, I think that's a really great way to show, you know, once again, you know, the kind of alignment that your group is. But having a PC unicorn race have the unicorn horn could be very interesting. The minecart attraction at the Carnival can actually kill players if they fail too many wisdom saves. Yes, they can. 1d8 nights of 1d3 exhaustion levels is kind of insane. Yes, so it's really funny to think, right? Because, you know, commoners are regularly going on this thing. You know, it's much more jovial. So it's meant to be that you get these levels of exhaustion, and then, like, they only jack you up for a little bit of time. They're not meant to kill you. But that being said, if you are running things purely by the letter of the law, rules as written, there is going to be a game out there where PCs die because of this. It's going to happen. So, but you know, I'm willing to bet that a lot of DMs are going to just simply hand wave that away, or more importantly, people are just going to like save or whatever, and it doesn't matter. It is what it is. I have to go to work, Trevor. All the best. All the best to you, Fred. All the best to you. Alrighty. Yeah, keep those questions coming if you've got any, because this is quite a big book, and I think that I hard know like 85% of it. So yeah. Okay, yeah, I just got bombarded by a whole bunch of Discord things. Apparently my click-through rate of my Wild Beyond the Witchlight video was very good. I still don't know exactly what that means for me, but apparently I've got a good one, and so that's all that matters. Apparently that's all that matters. And some people added me, and blah, blah. Apparently there's some drama going on. Maybe. My time to shine. Something about my time. Do you guys have some ideas of characters who lost the 8 that are mentioned? I have a video coming out on that tomorrow. Always got to plug yourself when you can. I'm really bad at selling myself, which is really bad in the industry of selling yourself. YouTube is literally just about, you know, pimping yourself out to as many people as you possibly can. But I'm really bad at it. I need to get better. I need to, like, I always feel bad about saying, like, oh, hey, you should check out my video. Oh, hey, you should, like, I'm coming out with something later. I'm really bad at that when I'm talking to people that are outside, like, my realm. But I need to do it. Because, quite frankly, if I say to 100 people, hey, check out my videos, then at least one person's going to check out my videos. So, yeah, I need to do that more. Just picked up the Wild Beyond the Witchlight on Roll20. It comes with 11 maps, 5 posters of the Carnival and Prisoner, 6 grids, Downfall, Cottage, Loomlurk, Motherhorn, and 2 Palace maps. Lots of tokens, though. So, the thing about Roll20 is, when you buy things on Roll20, you are, on average, saving yourself anywhere between, like, 10 of prep time. And a lot of that is in the maps, yes. but it's also in the the tokens. The tokens are absolutely insane how much time they take up, because my God, tokens. Am I right? Tokens take up a tremendous amount of time to set up and, do all that fun jazz with. So buying on Roll20 is absolutely a go-to if you don't feel like buying a product and then having to spend your time on that product. Do I think any of my campaigns will do a non-battle option? The game that I'm currently running, that one is battle is happening, but they're not murdering people. So battle's happening, but they're not straight up like murking people left, right, and center. That being said, there's still combat with them. But that's because they enjoy combat a bit more. I will definitely get a group together and be like, hey, no combat allowed. Like, straight up, like, initiative will never be rolled in the history of... that's not true. I'll say, like, the only time initiative is ever going to be rolled is when, like, something's trying to chase after you. Like, I'm going to run that campaign. And I know there's a lot of people out there that want that adventure because, it's a totally unique spin on running a game of just, either talking way out of things, sneaking around things, negotiating things. So I definitely know that I'm going to have a no battle campaign one of these days. So basically we should just homebrew as much as possible. Is this in regards of the time allotment or the time it takes in this adventure? I would say you don't have to homebrew this adventure at all to have a perfectly meaningful, successful, and awesome adventure. What I will say, though, is that this adventure is very open to homebrew. I know for a fact in the next coming weeks, we're going to be getting a plethora of people coming up with their homebrew on making Prismere more big and adding like maybe a hex crawl element to it, maybe adding more of a point crawl element to it, and maybe adding, maybe there's like a rival faction of hags. And, I know a lot of people are going to be doing a bunch of those things, but quite frankly, you don't need it. If you want to, perfectly awesome, power to you. I encourage you that you change every adventure. I encourage that you don't run every adventure as written. But do you need a homebrew as much as possible? No, absolutely not. As a backer of Hegna, are you going to use its soundtrack for The Wild Beyond the Witchlight? For the Carnival aspect, yeah. For the Carnival, absolutely. Absolutely, because the Hegna soundtrack coming out for it's pretty dope. Hey, dude, just got in the stream. I always enjoy using minis with my game. Would you know if the monster encounters have a lot of minis supported by the Nolzur's range? I know that they're coming out with them. I don't know when they're coming out. I think it's going to be the same line of like the Rime of the Frostmaiden stuff where like it came out over time. I know the minis are coming. I just don't know when they're coming. And yeah, Maori Wargaming. How's it going? I worked alongside a bunch of New Zealanders at one point. They did a haka. Pretty cool people. Premium box. Was wondering why it came with a special secret Tasha mini. Now I'm glad I pre-ordered it. Everything works out in the end. Absolutely. You gotta remember, players only have one job in life, and that is to ruin your life. Like, that is their sole gift. They're gonna try and finagle, not the NPCs. They're not trying to subvert the NPCs. They're trying to subvert you. So you have to be on guard, right? You have to roleplay up the NPCs as they should be. If you have dumb NPCs, then for sure they're going to be taken advantage of. The real question and the real thing you got to consider is, when it comes to the smart NPCs, including, most important of all, the hags, they are going to try and finagle with those hags, and you have to be on your absolute guard to be saying the right thing and not accepting random things. You got to be absolutely clear with everything, and you can't trip up because your players are never going to let it down. Because players are scumbags. That is what they do. So yeah, for sure. In regards of like the hags, like, gosh darn well, like the players are gonna try and do something stupid, like give the hag like, I don't know, something stupid like an egg or something. Like, and then they're gonna be like, oh, because we gave you a gift, we have to get something in return, right? We have to. You have to give us something, right? Or like as you're role playing as the hag, you're gonna say something in regards of like, oh yeah, like I'll give you something, and then they'll be like, yeah, you have to give it to us now. You have to. Like, you have to definitely just like, you gotta be on absolute high alert in those situations, specifically if you have those players. There's players that are not as stringent and not as hardcore on those things. Is there any other setting or campaign theme you'd like to see next from Wizards of the Coast? Yes, I want to see Spelljammer. I want to see Planescape, because I love me some Sigil and I love me some Shemeshka. And thirdly, me personally, I'm not the biggest of fans of it, but I respect what it is. I know that everybody in like this huge nerding community wants Dragonlance. I think Dragonlance could do well. But for me personally, I want Spelljammer, I want Planescape, and I want I'm trying to think of all the other like settings that was done, because let's face it, people, we're not gonna get Al-Qadim. Me thinks that Wizards of the Coast is not gonna touch Al-Qadim with a 10-foot pole. I don't think we're gonna get Cathay. I don't think we're going to get I don't think we're gonna get Dark Sun like as like it used to be, because because it had a lot of slavery in it, and it had a representation of certain peoples in a certain light, in a certain way, and I don't think Wizards of the Coast are gonna touch that with a 10-foot pole. But if they do go back to Dark Sun, then they're gonna like basically clean it up a bit for modern use. I'm trying to think of all the other settings. I don't think we're getting Al-Qadim. I feel like Dragonlance has got to be somewhere along the lines, because they cleared up all that stuff with the authors. So yeah, but for sure, my top two there are definitely Planescape and Spelljammer. Would so love some Planescape and Sigil. Absolutely. So Planescape in particular is definitely just one of those great locations of like, yeah, this is just a metropolis, crazy, this is the New York hustle and bustle, and we're going to spawn, like, you can spawn so many adventures from it, because one of the fun things you can do is you can do the Trapped in the Birdcage campaign, where your players just show up there and now they're stuck there and they got to figure out how to live life, right? Like there's a lot of great campaigns you can have with that just one hook. I'd love to run a group of psychic peasants rising up against the slavocracy in Dark Sun. Yeah, I definitely think Dark Sun has a lot of great things going on for it. And, Dark Sun definitely, here's what I'd say. I think that they're going to hold off on Dark Sun until they finally hammer out the Psionic. Because years ago, they came out with the Mystic or the Psionic or whatever they called it. And they had so many rules and special abilities and a whole bunch of crazy things and a whole bunch of UA for it. And they haven't touched it since. So I think they're going to go back to it at some point. And when they do, they're going to bundle it with Dark Sun. You could do a revolutionary take on the depiction of slavery in Dark Sun, in my opinion. They absolutely could, right? I recently saw an article about slavery in D&D. And the interesting thing is, when it comes to slavery, how is it represented? Because if you look at history, when all these people were running, you had these slaves, they weren't sitting there twirling their mustaches saying, haha, we're totally evil, we've got all these slaves. No, Like, slavery was just everyday life for these people. And so, like, then you get into the metaphysical discussion of what is alignment. Are slave owners from all those years ago evil? Because they probably didn't see themselves as evil, right? But then you have the cosmology of D&D where there is obvious good, there's obvious evil, and there's obvious neutrality. And I think that nowadays, when you have those discussions about slavery and how it's represented, I think that there's a lot of fine things you got to look at. And I don't know if Wizards of the Coast is willing to tackle that. I certainly think that they could. I certainly think that if they are willing, they could, do a revolutionary take and depiction on slavery in Dark Sun. I definitely think they could, but I don't know if they are going to. It's definitely a discussion worth having. It's definitely something that should be looked at and addressed. But is it going to be done by the company that wants to make money and not piss off a whole bunch of people? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Since they dropped Fizzband's name, a Dragonlance setting book is definitely on the way. Yeah, absolutely, right? Like, Dragonlance is the birthplace of modern D&D. So, when you look at old D&D adventures, I mentioned some of these before, but I'm sure a lot of people have dropped in now. A lot of the old school adventures of the Keep on the Borderlands, and then, the Isle of Dread, and then... whatever, insert all these awesome, fun, random, adventures. There is an expectation, and there is the idea that your PC is going to die. The dungeon hates you. If you go into the dungeon and you stay around for too long, you're going to die. If you go into the dungeon and you don't check for traps, you're going to die. If you go against that one monster in that one room, you're going to die. The PC's dying was a regular occurrence. And then a revolutionary thing took place with Dragonlance. With Dragonlance, you had a whole bunch of pre-made characters. And if your PC died, the DM had to come up with an elaborate way on why that PC disappears. And that could be like, oh, during the fighting, the orcs grab the player character and drag them away. Oh, as you're fighting alongside the cliff, the player character falls off. A pterodactyl comes and, or I guess in this case, a dragon comes and swoops up the player character. And there was this thing of these player characters couldn't die. These character sheets couldn't die. And I feel like that is honestly where we started going into the more heroic side of things, where player characters punched up against bigger and bigger foes because there was this certain expectation. There was these certain ideas that player characters didn't die. And, that's definitely gone on to 5th edition, because I know a lot of people in a lot of games run games where PCs don't die. So Dragonlance absolutely, easily fits into 5th edition. I don't think that there's a lot of editions that fit well with 5e in regards of, the higher, specifically the high fantasy and the heroic nature of it. But Dragonlance absolutely fits well. Absolutely. There's also a campaign book with a theme inspired by southern India. The author of Kelakari and Niranjan sections of Van Richten's guide mentioned it in an interview. Yeah. So that's another thing I wanted to, I didn't want to talk about it, but it's coming up, is when we look at the Sword Coast is just the catch-all generic European fantasy. And throughout the course of all of D&D, we've been given a whole bunch of other areas to explore around, or in places and to see. But the real question is are Wizards of the Coast willing to stray away from that generic European style, or are they willing to take on, the place that's flavored like India, and the place that's flavored like China, and the place that's flavored like Africa? Are they willing to tackle on these motifs? Because once again, I don't know. I don't know if they are willing to try and take the time to try and do it in a respectful manner, because if they don't do it in a respectful manner, they're screwed. But if they do it in a respectful manner, are they going to get more out of it than if they had just done the same, thing? I don't work at Wizards of the Coast, so I can't say. I've got no clue. But I definitely think there's a lot of places worth exploring. But Wizards of the Coast, it needs to take the initiative to do it. I know that other companies are doing it, so maybe Wizards of the Coast will do the same. The Wild Beyond the Witchlight rank amongst some of the other adventure books in the past 2 years at the top of the bottom. Definitely at the top. So let me take a look at what's been coming out. So the newest adventure module, we look at good old-fashioned Icewind Dale Rime of the Frost Maiden, which Rime of the Frost Maiden is not gonna get the most love because of how meshed together things were. It was basically a whole bunch of different adventures, and then they just tried shoving them together. It was like a whole bunch of pieces of Jenga, and they tried making a tower out of it, kind of thing. What else has come out in the past 2 years? Descent into Avernus. Did Descent into Avernus come out within the past 2 years? I feel like it did. Yeah, it did. It did. So Descent into Avernus, I know not everyone loves because, man, Baldur's Gate, I don't know what they're thinking with that. Kind of tagged on there. So I definitely think that Wild Beyond the Witchlight is definitely going to rank higher up there, purely based on what the adventure entails, based on the cohesive nature of the book itself, and due to the fact that it is way less prep intensive than some of the other adventurers. Absolutely. So definitely near the top, if not the top, out of the adventures of the past 2 years. I'll tell you what, I know that there's a lot of Curse of Strahd, people that love that thing to death. I know that Curse of Strahd gets so much love and affection and attention, which I don't think it deserves as much as it gets, but it does. It does at the end of the day. And I doubt that this book is going to steal away the people's hearts and minds from Curse of Strahd. But, definitely near the top. PCs can die, but it's hard. Their favorite NPCs, though. Exactly, right? So, that's always an interesting question of, in 5e, natively, the PCs have death saving throws. Meaning that when they drop to 0 HP, unless they're hit by a ridiculous amount of damage, they get a whole bunch of chances to live. And it's not a 50-50 chance on living because it's a DC 10, meaning that on a 20-sided die, 11 of the results mean you succeed. So you're more than likely going to succeed on all these death saving throws. More than likely. So your PCs are more likely to live. But when it comes to monsters in the world, we typically have it where the monster dies at 0 HP. So when it comes to the monsters, that's the typical thing. But what about the allies? What about the NPCs? Do they get death saving throws? Are they important enough? Do they operate on the guidelines of the monsters, or do they operate on the guidelines of the player characters? That's definitely that's a discussion you need to have at the table of, are those lovable hirelings, henchmen, retainers, followers, are those people just as sturdy as the PCs, or do they drop off as much as flies as the monsters? I run a lot of old school games. I run a lot of old school Renaissance and old school Revival games, and in those games, the hirelings, henchmen, and retainers die when they hit 0. So they regularly get killed, and it's really sad. It is what it is. I loved Rime, but it was melded together weirdly. So I like Rime too. Something that about me is I like all of the adventures, except for some strange reason. I've got this weird thing in my brain that basically looks at Prince of the Apocalypse, and I don't like it as much. I like all of the adventures. All of the adventures are worth running, but all of the adventures need tweaking of some kind, and some of them need more love than others. And Rime of the Frost Maiden is definitely one of those adventures that needs a bit of tweaking to make it truly shine and stand out as much as it deserves to. Awesome, thanks. Yeah, no problem. Ajit George, a Wizard of the Coast writer, 100% confirmed we're getting an Indian setting, although it might take a calendar year or so. Cool. I'm curious though, does that mean specifically that's coming from Wizards of the Coast or coming from him and he's self-publishing it? That's what I want to know. I wonder if it will be presented as a MTG setting, like how they did Greek mythology and culture with Theros. Well, I don't know if I do play Magic the Gathering, but I've only just recently been playing it, so I don't know the full backlog history of Magic the Gathering. So I don't know if there is a specific Indian setting. There might be. I wouldn't know though. I honestly couldn't tell you one way or another. But yeah, I would be curious to note if it is specifically coming from Wizards of the Coast, because there has been people that work at Wizards of the Coast who have published other things. The DM's Guild and Drive Through RPG have plenty of offerings from some previous employees or maybe even current employees. I got a message. Pending? Silvernail? Who are you? Random friend. I get a lot of random friend requests on Discord, and I don't know why. So you can message me you can do that. For those of you watching, if you're in any Discord that we share together, whether that be my No Fun Allowed Discord or any of the module Discords, you can feel free. So when it comes to this adventure, we mentioned this. I was talking about this earlier, but this adventure has a swamp biome, a forest biome, and a mountain biome. And something to note about all the adventures is they all have a theme about them. So if we look at Rime of the Frost Maiden, guess what the motif is? The Arctic. And then we go to Baldur's Gate, and guess what? The motif is hell. And then we go to Tomb of Annihilation, jungle. We go to Curse of Strahd, just mostly like a gothic, forested, area, etc., etc. We have not had a desert theme yet. We haven't had a desert motif yet. Out of all the 5e lineups, the only adventure that takes us to a desert, like a desert, has been from a Candle Key Mystery. And it's only one. So I definitely think that maybe, because Wizards of the Coast loves doing all these different themes. Maybe we'll get a desert theme sometime in the future. I would love that. Because desert is my second most favorite biome. Hey, the 3 Fanes of Barovia are also themed around forest, swamp, and mountain. I mean, hey, it's I'm willing to bet the reason why that is because the reason why we have all of those gothic tales and Grimm's fairy tales, why we have all of those is because you probably make up stories about the environment that you're in, and all those European stories, they probably originated from people that all lived in swamps, forests, and mountains, right? So it's probably just something that's been carried out throughout the entirety of the time. Yeah, we'll probably get a desert adventure, although technically tundra is desert. No! Doesn't count. I want sand. Gosh darn it. Yeah, I'm trying to think here, because trying to predict what Wizards of the Coast is trying to do next is kind of hard, That being said, though, Wizards of the Coast always does tease out their next adventures at some point when they do those lore you should knows and doing some sort of podcast on it on their YouTube series, on the D&D YouTube. So if you watch a lot of those, maybe you can try and like totally guess what's coming up next. Because they alluded to this a long time ago. They alluded to Realm of the Frostmaid a long time ago. They alluded to Hell a long time ago. So there's definitely a way to do that. To try and predict what they're trying to do next. The desert campaign will be Dark Sun. Let's hope. So I do hate to break it to you, but it does seem now painfully obvious that the adventure modules that we get are all about the Forgotten Realms, and specifically on the planet of Toril, and most notably taking place around the Sword Coast. This book has like literally like no like it doesn't matter where you are kind of thing. But when it comes to those campaign setting books, those adventures do not take place in like those campaign settings. So while we do have like we've got Theros, we're not going to get a full-on adventure module in Theros. While we've got why am I blanking on the other campaign module settings? Eberron. While we got Eberron, we're not going to get a Eberron module. So if we do get a Dark Sun, we're not going to get a Dark Sun. If we do get a Dark Sun setting, we're not going to get a Dark Sun adventure module. The Witchlight campaign is a reflection of COS. Yeah. There's some similarities and most importantly some asymmetricalness to it. I'm pumped for a desert campaign and how's it going, Craig Jones? CJ. I'm pumped for desert campaigns as well, especially with Dune: Age of the Imperium out now, as well as the movie right around the corner. So I unfortunately heard some bad things about the movie. I heard that the movie wasn't that great. I haven't watched it yet, but the critics are not liking it. Not that you should care about what the critics like and don't like, because screw the critics. But I'm been hearing from regular viewers that it's been not the greatest. So hopefully they're all wrong and I'm right. Hopefully. You could legit take Realm of the Frostmaid and run it as a desert campaign with a few reskins. Yeah, absolutely. So I remember that was actually say. And yeah, you literally just replace. You take it from hot to cold. You take it from. I have now been streaming for 2.5 hours. Been a decent stream here. Okay. Trying to do some stuff here. Boom. Okay. Alrighty. Y'all can have me for a few more minutes, but I do believe I've got a game at 8 o'clock. Let me double check here to see if that got postponed at all. Let me see here. I don't think it did. So I do got to, I got to bounce just before 8. Yep. So yeah, y'all got me for another, I'll say 15 minutes is when I'll end it. So if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask me. And if you can't get to it right now, feel free to check out the Discords. So right now, you can go to my Discord. If you haven't already signed up for the book giveaway, I am doing a book giveaway. Just join my Discord and then type in to the wild giveaway, and you'll be in for the running that is being done tomorrow, as of this recording. So it's on the 22nd is when I reveal the winners. There's gonna be 3 winners, by the way. And if you ever have any questions, you can always add me in that Discord, because I'll get around to it eventually. Some days I'm very busy, of course, whether I'm recording, editing, or I'm out, or, working or whatever. So yeah, feel free to hit me up on all that. Feel free to comment on my videos. Definitely comment on all my videos, because that's the best way for, if you want my channel to grow, that's the best way to do it, is by liking and commenting on all my videos, because that helps out quite a lot. Like, YouTube punishes you if you get views but then like people don't like comment on it and like it and stuff. It's kind of funny how that works. So yeah, thank you all so very much for chilling with me, talking about this adventure that I love and I'm going to be showing off so much of. Videos are coming. I mean, like, literally a video came out today and a video is coming out tomorrow, and I think there's going to be like a regular stream of like maybe a video every 2 or 3 days on this adventure. I gotta figure out the exact formula of how often the videos are going to come out. But I will figure that out, and you'll see it. You'll see it on my channel. So I'm totally looking forward to this. I'm already running this adventure now, so yeah, absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. Good stream. Thanks. Thank you. I'm glad I was able to catch some of this. My kids were playing hockey when you started up the stream, so I missed most of this. I think your kids playing hockey is more important than my stream. This is what I'll say. But thank you for watching. Thank you. Yeah, great stream. Thanks for taking questions. Thank you for asking them. Yo, man, love the tomb content. Been using it a bit for the campaign. A lot for the campaign. I listened to your video about hags being the main antagonist. Think I can make them the Stone Sisters instead? Yes, you absolutely could. That is a awesome transition from Tomb to this adventure. Of course, you got to scale up the adventure to be higher level and stuff, but that is a awesome way to tie in this adventure. Abso-freaking-lutely. Yeah, that's a great idea. I am so looking forward to your videos on Witchlight. Heck yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to pumping them out. Thank you so much for this and all your module guides. I feel like I'm doing active prep listening to you at work. Cheers. Yeah, the reason why I did this, my guide series, which I've now done only like 4 of, sadly. What have I done? I've done TOA, Rime of the Frost Maiden, Curse of Strahd, Candlekeep Mysteries, Waterdeep Dragoneth. I've done 5. I've done 5 so far. I've only done 5. Oh, hiya. The reason why the reason why I did them is because I know that there was people that just see these 200, 300 page books and are like, where the heck do I start? So that's why I did the series, because I know that some people basically want help with them. And I wanted to be basically a Cliff Notes version of the adventure. So whether that be you read the book and then you like confer with me on it to like, solidify your beliefs on it, or you just take my word as like, oh, hey, that's like a good idea, or you just like use me as inspiration or whatever. That's why I want to do it. Abso-freaking-lutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. So yeah, I wanted to be like a Cliff Notes version of all the 5e modules, and I think that could be a great way to go about it. The hags being the main antagonist for the Witchlight. Hell yeah, thanks for the confirmation, brother. Hell yeah, brother. Abso-freaking-lutely. Now I need to read TOA to find out who the Stone Sisters are. Yeah, I will say that's a really good, considering TOA is my most favorite module. I do appreciate that. I do appreciate the marriage between these two adventures. Absolutely a great way to go about it. Alrighty, I'm gonna say 3 more minutes. You got 3 more minutes to ask any of those burning questions. 3 more minutes to ask me anything and everything. No fun's word is gospel. I've talked a lot about this, and I've made a whole bunch of videos on this, but don't run games the way I do. Run your game your way. Anybody could run the adventure modules. Anybody could run my game, but nobody can run your game, right? Nobody. And that's the beauty of it. When you run your game your way for your players, they get that unique experience that no one else will ever get, and that is a truly magical experience and a truly awesome time. 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes to ask anything. Anything. I'll get to it. If need be, I'll go over the time, but only 2 minutes left. Come on. Anybody got anything at all? Feel free to ask. It's been fun. Have yourself a great evening. You as well, CJ. You as well. Have a great evening. 1 more minute before the stream concludes, before I end the stream. 1 more minute. Anything? Go on. I'm dying of anticipation. Go on. Thank you all so much for watching this. This has been a fun time. I don't know if I'll stream regularly, but I know I should stream more often, because I think streaming is just a fun way to interact with people, you know, and it's a great way to get some burning things off of my chest and in my mind and all that, and I think there's a great way to go about it. Alrighty, 30 more seconds. 30 more seconds. If you got a question, I need it now. Do it. Do it now. Best class for Harengon. Rogue. Favorite trap in TOA. The elemental cells. Yeah. Trust me, I work good under pressure. I can do things real quick if need be. Alrighty. Okay. 10 more seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that's gonna, good to see you on live. Glad I caught it at the end. Thank you so much for stopping by, but I have been streaming for 2.5 hours, no, 2 hours and 42 minutes, and I've got a game in 15 minutes. So that is going to do it for me for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for commenting. Thank you for all of your awesome support, for everything that I do. You guys are truly awesome. Thank you to my amazing patrons who are able to keep me afloat in these dire times. My patrons are truly awesome. Thank you so very much. If you want to support me financially, then do so through Patreon. Absolutely great way to see what I'm working on and get some updates on all that. And in the future here, I'm going to be putting out a whole bunch of written content for my amazing patrons. And in the far, far future, I am going to be doing a magazine style thing, coming out with a whole bunch of fun 5e supplemental material. So stay tuned for all of that. But that is going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. Thanks for listening. Thank you to my amazing patrons. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thank you so very much. And I cannot wait to see you all in the next one. See ya!